Welcome to Culturally Relevant Representation. My name is Bree Van Til. I am still, thank you, the Director of Education here at Alt Legal. I'm still, for just a few more hours, your Master of Ceremonies for Alt Legal Connect. Thank you so much for joining us. As a reminder, our code of conduct you can see right here. Don't be a jerk. If anybody's being a jerk to you, let us know. This session may be sensitive for some people. Don't be a jerk about it, please. It's really important stuff, and Ticora is amazing, and you're going to learn so much from her. Okay, this session does qualify for CLE if you are watching it live. Couple of things though. Number one, you must be present for the entirety of the session. It must be the top tab. We will know. Number two, please take note of the CLE code that I will come in to interrupt Ticora briefly to tell you. I will say it twice, so please write it down and then put that into the survey that we will send the link to in the chat. So make sure to do that. If you're watching this in a recording, no CLE for you unless you self-apply. That's a whole different thing. But okay, this session has been brought to you by Docket Alarm. If you have not been to their booth, go to their booth, see all about them. They're wonderful. Okay, now I'm really excited to introduce Ticora Davis. I've been thinking tons about this session and about how important it is. It's amazing. I'm super excited for it. So Ticora has an innate gift to see the greatness lying dormant in people. I absolutely believe that. We see the greatness that's lying, not dormant, but active in her. She calls herself a purpose activator, and she seamlessly blends her knowledge of the law with her passion for people to birth a creative revolution within each life she touches. Oh, that's so beautiful. Fueled by her passion for advocacy, Ticora helps entrepreneurs protect their smarts with culturally relevant legal representation. She's been honored by Who's Who of Black Charlotte and Business North Carolina's legal elite, and she boasts a 96% success rate from her trademark clients. She's amazing. You're going to learn a ton from her. And Ticora, it is all you.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much just for having me. The success rate is now 98.5%, but who's counting? I am. I'm delighted to speak with everyone today. Thank you so much for putting the presentation up. And I'm really excited to share with you all about what is culturally relevant legal representation, how you can incorporate this into your firm, not only in light of your own firm's respective culture, but in light of some of the recent changes that we've seen before the USPTO this year. And, as I'm going throughout, if people have questions, comments, concerns, or just general feedback, I love interacting and engaging with any audience, or just say hello. So let's get started. I have already been introduced and I look a little different. I decided to do some red hair and I really like this new change. So I have to now update all my professional photos. So just a general overview of what we're going to cover today. I'm just going to share with you my definition of culturally relevant legal representation. I'm going to share with you the history of intellectual property in this country. Also, the new rule of foreign domiciled applicants, ensuring that those individuals have local counsel, and really how we can really step in and serve the needs of another population, how you can implement culturally relevant representation in your firm, sharing with you also some marketing ideas and just really some of the things that I have done in a very short period of time to arguably be the owner and founder of one of the go-to law firms for creative entrepreneurs and small business owners. And also just having a Q&A, being able to engage with everyone, chat with folks, so let's get started. So culturally relevant define. This is actually a term of art that is found within the teaching realm, in the realms of academia, And really culturally relevant teaching or responsive teaching is a pedagogy grounded in the teachers displaying cultural competence, which is a skill at teaching in a cross-cultural or a multicultural setting. Teachers use this method to encourage each student to relate to the course content to his or her cultural context. And so in light of, when it comes to our law firms, I think most of us realize, or at least you should, that many people are very intimidated by attorneys. And that a lot of times has to do with their culture or lack thereof when it comes to really engaging with lawyers. And so as I began to look at my firm and what it is that I do and what do I bring into the marketplace, I began to ask myself, how can I meet the needs of my particular community who is quite often overlooked or they don't have access to legal representation, specifically as it relates to intellectual property and business in this country? And so I asked myself, well, if this is really working in classrooms and working in the realms of academia, how can culturally relevant representation work if I infuse this into my law firm? And so I've defined culturally relevant legal representation as advocacy that infuses the power of cultural context and competency on behalf of our clients. And so as I began to look at how I represent, large in part, the African American community and those within the African diaspora, I have to also ask myself, how can I advocate for this particular community who is quite often drawn to me and infuse cultural competency and cultural representation with the legal services that I do provide? So here's an example of how I did just that. A lot of times what I find when I'm engaging with different trademark examiners, I do not know the demographics and the backgrounds or how diverse the trademark USPTO is, but I've heard that they have made some strides, in the recent future to diversify the examiners. And that's very important because we are dealing with marks, symbols, words that have different meanings with respect to different cultures. One of my clients had a trademark called the photo cookout. Now, in the African American community, the term cookout does not just mean, a backyard barbecue, And so what happened was the trademark examiner said, oh, the photo cookout is a descriptive trademark and it needs to be registered on the supplemental registry. Well, we all know as trademark practitioners, or we should know, or it's something that I'm introducing to you now, the supplemental registry is not where you really want your client's trademarks to go. If you can get it on the principal, large in part, that's exactly what you need to do. And so what I ended up having to do with this particular client in their particular situation was I had to explain to the examiner what a cookout meant, because the examiner believed that a cookout within this particular context was essentially a fine dining experience for photographers. And so I had to share with him, and this is a snippet of that particular argument. I said the term photo is ambiguous because he was saying, it was descriptive or whatever. And I said, in that same vein, the word cookout is amorphous, ambiguous, and subject to multiple meanings. Arguably, the word photo is used in applicant's mark as a prefix to modify the meaning of cookout. Generally, the term cookout means an outing for which a meal is cooked. Outside of the traditional connotation, the term cookout for African Americans is a colloquialism for community. Oftentimes, one is extended an invitation to the proverbial cookout if they are deemed an ally of the Black community. So this connotation is important to note for the examiner to apply cultural relevance, i.e., I believe that this is a public policy argument to the descriptive analysis of the trademark. In the applicant's mark, cookout is used fluidly to refer to both a gathering of the African American community and friends by way of a conference and a dining experience. And so when I'm saying looking at cultural relevancy, cultural context, looking at the meanings of certain words, and possibly even AAVE, which is African American Vernacular English, in my particular firm, I must infuse that advocacy into zealous representation of my clients and making sure that they have access to the trademarks in which they should have access to, and allow them to have them register on the most powerful registry possible. And so I was able to really take a step back and say, okay, do I understand the cultural meaning? Sorry, my children, of course, are trying to get into my room right now. Do I understand, and how can I look at the cultural meaning of this term and infuse it into the office action? And thankfully, this was a persuasive argument, and it weighed in the favor of my applicants and in favor of my client. And as such, we were able to successfully overcome the office action. And I believe largely in part due to this particular argument, and also be able to register it on the principal registry. And so when you begin to think about representing diverse groups, it is imperative to ask additional questions if you get pushback. Does this term have an additional meaning, within your particular community? Does it have multiple meanings? Is it double entendre? Like, we need to know these things, and we need to take it a step further as practitioners to be able to ask these particular questions, because if not, we're not doing our clients justice. We're not doing our clients justice if we do not ask these particular questions, because by not asking those questions, we end up really selling our clients short. And so when I look at providing culturally relevant legal representation to my clients, that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about saying, okay, does the cultural context of these words, of these marks, and how it applies to this particular community in which the services or the mark is being marketed to, how do they receive it? Because we have to put ourselves in the shoes of the consumer. And so by putting myself in the shoes of the consumer for this particular trademark, and by being able to provide culturally relevant legal representation and infusing the cultural context of this particular word, I infused it into the argument, and we were successful. And so I wanted to also just share with you really a practical way as lawyers and how, to infuse that. So Ed Timberlake, at least in my experience, trademark examining attorneys are always open to you explain to them what they don't know. Yes, sometimes they are. I believe so. I believe that they are open to that. But I also think that sometimes if you're not a member of a particular culture, would you even know enough to even ask that particular question? Would it be something that you just thought, oh, okay, well, it's just a cookout? And so maybe I do agree with this particular examiner. Would we take it a step further as practitioners to ask those questions of our clients? And if we're not, it's something that you can do in the intake process, or certainly something that you can do if you are met with an office action in order to be able to do that. Okay. So we're going to talk about the history of intellectual property in the United States. And I think this is really important when I look at the stats of, the number of African-American attorneys in the United States are 5%. And then when I look at the number of African-American attorneys who practice intellectual property law, it's only 1.9%. And so, I didn't learn about intellectual property until I was in North Carolina State University. I was in my plant physiology laboratory, and I was doing research on genetically modified tomatoes because I have a biology degree. I thought I wanted to be a doctor. And that was my first introduction to intellectual property law. I believe I was 24 at the time. And I was doing research, and I had no idea that there was this infusion of both science and law, and really being introduced to what intellectual property was. And so when I represent people in my particular community, and I'm not saying that my view or my lens is swayed, but a lot of what I speak about and in terms of what my platform stands on is ensuring that those who are in the African American community and those who are in the African diaspora have access to quality legal representation, particularly as it relates to business, contract, and intellectual property law. And when I began to do research on intellectual property, and I came across this article on IP Watchdog, there's a lot of historical implications when it comes to intellectual property. I love this quote, and it says, "We cannot understand intellectual property today without recognizing the identity struggles embedded within it. Intellectual property's convergence with identity politics, reveals links between cultural representation and development, which traditional economic analysis of intellectual property overlook. One of the things that I read in another article, and I will try to follow up and share it with you all, which absolutely blew my mind, was when enslaved Africans were freed. One of the requirements for their freedom was that they had to transfer the rights of their intellectual property to their former owners in order to gain total freedom. So any type of rights that they had to any patentable inventions or any of those ideas, they had to relinquish that right to their intellectual property to their former owner in order to really gain their freedom. And when we think about that, and we stomach that fact that that was actually going on, that this was something that was actually occurring, that this was a requirement in order for people to have to transfer ownership rights to their intellectual property and their intellectual inventions, we realize, wow, we have this culture and this dichotomy with respect to intellectual property as it relates to the communities that I represent, in which, wow, there's great value there, but there's also this history that isn't always beautiful. And then we see how this trickles into some of the other, the entertainment field, where some of the early artists in the early 19th century who were African American, when they were creating content, other artists were able to come in and really usurp and take their intellectual property, remake those songs. We even see that with Elvis and You Ain't Nothing But a Hound Dog. He took that particular song from a Black woman. I forget what her name is, right? And so we began to look and see, wow, it's not just intellectual property and this really interesting relationship that some communities have had with it, but how this also trickles into contract law, and how even some of the artists who were able to work and provide their unique genius to entertain, us, how they were not adequately represented by legal counsel, and making sure that someone really zealously advocated for their rights to really be compensated fairly. And how a lot of times those who come from marginalized communities were on the short end of the stick. And so when I look at when I say I provide culturally relevant legal representation, I'm really taking into account the overall history of the groups that I have the honor of representing. And I'm saying, okay, some people are going to come to us and we don't know what their background is, what their culture is, any type of, good or bad, dealings that they've had, whether it be with lawyers, whether it be with different organizations. And I think that those are questions that we should really begin to ask, because I think when it comes to representing people, really having compassion and empathy for where they stand, it allows us to be better advocates. So I thought about this and how this relates to this new rule of us as Trademark Council, of really having the new requirement that foreign domiciled trademark applicants, registrants, and parties to trademark trial and appeal board proceedings, including Canadian trademark filers, must appoint and be represented before the USPTO by an attorney who is licensed to practice law in the United States. And so there is a need, clearly, for us as attorneys who are licensed to practice law in the United States. Thank you, Big Mama Thornton, that was her name. She was the one who sang You Ain't Nothing But a Hound Dog. But again, when we're looking at this new rule with the foreign domiciled trademark applicants, and their requirement that they must have, a U.S. licensed trademark attorney in order to file their trademark applications, there is likely a need for and really a great open door for you as a practitioner to be able to say, wow, maybe my firm can really be in a position to be able to help those foreign domiciled applicants, whether it be there's a relationship or partnership that you form with a foreign counsel, or in your marketing, in the content that you create, that you're able to say that this is something that I can do. I think it would be very smart if you did it that particular way, because there's clearly people who are foreign domiciled that are in need of representation, and being able to say, if there's a group or a particular community that I'm going to target through my marketing. Because, I have a good friend and her name is Isi, and she says, selling is serving. And so whenever you're, uh, basically saying, hey, here are the legal services that we could offer, and it seems that someone has an interest in that, you are serving that community, right? And so looking at the lens of how can you serve communities who have, foreign domiciled applicants, what can you do, and how can you say that, hey, here is how we, have that particular approach? A question. I've seen this play out with the word "bay" on USPTO and not understanding the use is commonplace in the African American community and preventing Black people from registering because they didn't make up the word. This is so relevant. What law is good to cite to further the compassion, empathy? You know what? I think I have to do even further research on this myself, Nina, because when I'm looking at it, I'm like, okay, it's funny. I even had to pull in a definition from Urban Dictionary. I believe when I was looking up even though it wasn't from Merriam-Webster, it wasn't from dictionary.com, Urban Dictionary had a relevant connotation of what the term cookout meant. And I was able to take that and infuse it into my argument. I think other things that are helpful are any type of articles in pop culture and media to be able to infuse into your arguments, because as we know, internet evidence is relevant whenever we're making these particular arguments. Another thing that I would even do is if someone, whether it be on a trusted media platform, if they're having a relevant conversation around this, you can take a transcript from, any type of interview, any type of speech or talk, and be able to infuse those things into your arguments. Because I'm not sure if there's enough, precedent set within the law for us to be able to cite. And I'm sure that there is some, with additional research, but sometimes those public policy arguments can really be enough to sway the pendulum in the client's direction. And when we're thinking about this rule of having the requirement that foreign domiciled applicants must have a U.S. licensed counsel, this rule is intended to increase USPTO customer compliance with trademark law and regulations. It is there to improve the accuracy of trademark submissions to the USPTO and safeguard the integrity of the U.S. Trademark Registry, because they were finding lots of fraud that was happening. And I believe that this is also why they're requiring now, we have to have accounts in terms of, your My USPTO account. There's, having to verify 5011 times. 5011 times is, and if you have not heard of that numerical equation, it's an African American colloquialism. So when I say 5011, that means a myriad of times, a countless number. Okay. I'm even infusing culturally relevant dialogue in this representation, right? So being able to have that rule in place, we're seeing how it's changing, even how we interact with the USPTO systems. So, and I've kind of covered this, why this rule is in place, and another warning that we have to be mindful of is that the USPTO is learning that U.S. licensed attorneys are receiving emails offering to pay for the use of their attorney identification with trademark filings. These solicitations appear to be an attempt to circumvent this rule. And so that is requiring U.S. representation at the trademark office. What I love about, alt legal is just the ability to kind of manage a lot of that type of stuff. It would be really interesting if there was a way that every time I don't even know if it's relevant or if it's even available, but if someone used your bar number, having the ability to be updated, or even have that pulled in by alt legal, that would be fantastic, because it's kind of difficult to monitor fraud if someone does want to use, your licensure and all that type of stuff. So I love that alt legal can pull in so much stuff, because my docket is, it's growing. On average, we do 100 trademarks a year. This year, it's definitely going to be about 200, probably more than that. And I just love that I'm able to monitor everything, or my team is able to monitor everything using alt legal. So again, we want to be mindful of this, that if you are going to position your firm to be able to say, hey, I can provide this type of counsel and representation to foreign domiciled applicants, that if someone does approach you and they say, hey, we will pay for the use of your information, obviously don't do that, because such arrangements would obviously aid in the unauthorized practice of law. And, we don't want to put our own licenses in jeopardy, right? Yeah. And sanctions for violating these rules may include striking the filing, terminating the proceedings, referring the attorney to the USPTO's Office of Enrollment and Discipline for appropriate action. In addition, attorneys may be disciplined for such violations, including exclusion or suspension from practicing before the Trademark Office, reprimand, censure, or probation. Attorneys disciplined by the USPTO also may be subject to discipline by the state bar. So when it comes to implementing culturally relevant representation in your firm, I'm going to share with you some exciting ways that I've been able to do that. I wish that, I make my own GIFs and I have so much fun doing that. You can search the name Ticora and you can see my GIFs like on, they'll be on Facebook, they're in Jiffy, and they also are like in your Instagram stories. So there's some there, and we're going to roll out even more. But here are some examples and ways that I have implemented culturally relevant representation in my firm. I'll get into that later, but we're going to talk about how you can do it first, and I'll share with you some ways in which I've done it. And so I want to reference, obviously, Model Rule 1.1. A lawyer shall provide competent representation to a client. Competent representation requires the legal knowledge, skill, thoroughness, and preparation reasonably necessary for representation. And I kind of just want to get on my soapbox for a second. I'm seeing a lot of people entering into practicing trademark law, and I think it's fantastic. I believe that people need to have a diverse array of attorneys that they can choose from. But I also know that if something is too big for you, or if you're having trouble, reach out to someone within this community. Begin to network with so many people here. Join Sonia Lakhani's, Facebook community. There's so many people that are willing to help and share resources. If you just ask, a lot of people are scared to talk to me. I don't know why. I think people are just scared to bother people, but I'm always willing to hop on the phone with folks and share whatever I can share. Obviously, I'm not going to share with you my proprietary processes, but I will kind of give you advice about what I've done to build my firm. So just feel like if you're at the point where you're like, gosh, I have this office action, I'm not exactly sure how to handle it, or they're requiring me to do this consent thing, I don't know what's going on, reach out and ask for help. I would say if you're going to implement culturally relevant representation to your firm, make a commitment to learning about your client's culture. Ask the client about cultural nuances. Make this a part of your client intake or onboarding process. One of the things that we even do in our firm is we ask our prospective clients, how do we pronounce your name? I literally put it on the acuity form where someone is saying, okay, we're going to schedule a discovery call or legal consultation. We say, how can we pronounce your name? I think it's one of the most honorable things that you can do by making a commitment to pronounce someone's name. I was at a clean juice restaurant earlier this year, and the young lady said, how do I pronounce your name? And I said, Ticora. And she said, oh, I'm not going to remember that anyway. And I'm like, well, I said, well, then you should not have even made the effort to ask. It was so rude. It was so dismissive. And she was someone who was in a service, in a service profession, as we are as well. And so I think even asking someone, how do I pronounce your name? Just doing that in the intake, or doing that, in your pre-meeting questionnaire, it really goes a long way. And it makes an effort, when you're saying someone's names correctly. Ask how to pronounce the client's name, even practice how to pronounce it before interfacing with the prospect as well. I would even say also to build relationships and partnerships. Practitioners must develop relationships with members of the culture to understand cultural context and historical relevance. I remember even when I went and did study abroad in Peru, this was a while ago, they told me there was a certain hand that I think it was my left hand, not to put that under the table, like not to eat with my hand on my lap. I was always supposed to have one of my hands visible, and it had some historical context there. And I was like, oh, well, let me make sure that I don't disrespect the culture by not having my hand visible, right? And so even little things like that, if you're developing relationships with communities and things like that, asking those questions will really go a long way. Because those relationships and cultural nuances can shed light on how it affects representation. Like, for example, don't touch a Black woman's hair, or don't touch Black people at all, really, like, without asking them, really asking anybody, right? But sometimes people just want to touch us. Why? I don't know, because I don't just go around touching people without asking questions. But I've had people say, oh, they want to touch you. And I'm like, whoa, we don't have that much of an issue now with COVID. People are really keeping their distance. But, if you go and you ask some folks who have melanin, ask them about how many times they've been touched without their consent. Utilize social media and your website to communicate your stance. Make it clear where you stand so there's no confusion with your prospective clients. You want to be seen as a trusted authority on the subject and a sympathetic party. So that just depends on certain things. Some people use their platform to talk about a variety of things. Some people don't, and that's fine. So now I want to kind of get into how I've used this to market my firm. And so I'm going to share with you a few things that I've done. I love this. This is my client. Her name is Audrey Richmond. She says the number one objective of marketing is to support your client or customer in making a decision to buy your product or service. She has an amazing book. It's called Uncloned Marketing. I love it. It's great. You can also get the audiobook because she really talks about how you can market yourself, because a lot of people are what she say are clones, which means that people are marketing the same way. They're doing the same things. And I see this a lot of times in our community, and you have to not be afraid, especially in the realm of social media and how you are really marketing your services, to stand out. So, how to stand out in a crowded marketplace. And some of these are things from her book, just some highlights. Some of these are things that I've kind of shared. You want to stand out in a crowded marketplace with your attitude, your authority, and credibility. Having S-Class Systems, that's a term that I've coined. Products and services, packaging and presentation, showing up, convenience, need, and positioning. So, it doesn't show. I think you said, Bree, let me see. Let me see if I can share something. Probably can't, but I can share my screen. She said I can do it at my own risk. I want to just share one thing within this presentation. But really, when it comes to, and I'll kind of go back, because you guys might say, well, what's an S-Class Systems? One of the strongest things, the most powerful things in my law firm is that I have next level systems. My systems are, they're probably better than all of yours. And I say that as humbly as I know how, because I literally look at them every single day. One of the things that I looked at whenever I started my law firm was, I said, how do I be an anti-lawyer? Like, I didn't want to appear like a lawyer. I didn't want to show up like a lawyer. And I asked myself, okay, what do people hate about attorneys? That was what I Googled. I literally Googled, what do people hate about attorneys? And one of the top things that they said that they hated about legal professionals is that they would interact with them, they would engage with them, and then, they didn't receive follow-ups. They didn't receive, feedback. They didn't have that. And so I built out a proprietary system that allows me to follow up with my clients, no matter what it is that they want, no matter what it is that they hire us for. And I'm always tweaking it. I'm always trying to fix it, always trying to make it better. I was even on a call with one of my team members earlier today, and we were looking at that. And so having S-Class Systems, the S in S-Class means success. So having successful systems allows your firm to operate on autopilot. There are things that should happen, like in a workflow that's automated. Think about it. The trademark process can last a year and a half. How often are you following up with a client? How many times are you following up with a client? How are you educating the client along the way? I've heard some people, they file the trademark and then they don't really update the client until like 4 or 5 months later. And it's like no type of, no type of feedback, no type of anything that we're sharing with the client. And so that's just not cool. Like it's not good enough for what is happening and what the things that we need to do to be able to represent our clients at the next level. And for me, again, that's just like, I can't, it's unacceptable. We have to make sure that we have really strong systems and be able to look at that and look at what we're doing on behalf of our clientele so that we can serve them. Because again, people need that. They absolutely need that. So hopefully I can share this slide with you. If not, I'll just go to the next thing. So I'm going to do that really quick. So here is what I was trying to show. Not showing up. All right. Well, I was going to show you. Oh, here it is. So I've created GIFs and stickers. So you guys, hopefully you can see the GIF that says you should trademark that. So if you look up my name, you can see that. So I use GIFs, in my marketing. So let me get back on this screen. Okay, awesome. So my slides, here we go. So I use GIFs and stickers. I use infographics a lot. So infographics are really, really popular. So, and it doesn't have to just be related to law. It could be related to the type of clientele you have. Most of the clientele that I serve, they're next level CEOs. They're 6, 7, 8-figure entrepreneurs, right? So I'm creating content that shows them, how they can be an S-class CEO, right? And so you can see where you have this infographic. I even did one, how to prepare your business for a hurricane, right? Habits of a time-rich CEO, your 5-step process to trademark your brand. You want to create content that is going to actually help your clients, not just help you, right? And that's going to get more eyes. I do client case studies. So the other thing that I'm doing is I'm interviewing the actual clients who I've had success with. And Felicia Jarrell is an amazing CEO. She owns a sticker brand. Her stuff is her stickers are featured in Michael. She's done some amazing partnerships. And so I wanted to interview her, 10, 15 minutes, asking her about her experience. Why? Because this case study, I can leverage this. I can run an ad with this. I can just put it on my social media feed. I can pull out quotes that she has. I can create, a lead magnet with all my client case studies, because there's some type of consumers that absolutely just want the cold hard facts. They don't care about the cute little infographics. They don't care about, your social media posts. They don't care about how amazing you are. They're like, where are the results at? Product delivery. So what I've started to do is I have sent my clients a trademark party in a box. So because nobody else was doing that, right? I want to be the first to do it first, to quote my client, Audrey Richmond. So I am making sure that when my clients receive their trademark, think about it, they're waiting 1.5 years to receive a trademark. That's a really long time. It never sat right with me to just send my clients an envelope in the mail and it's like, congratulations. So I send them some non-alcoholic bubbly. I send them a framed trademark. I send them a glass where they can put their wine, their libations in. I send them a party hat, and some other swag. And we make sure we deliver it in a way that shows them how valuable they are to us. Then I had a trademark turn up party. It's the first ever virtual trademark party. And then what I did was I invited my clients to it. I interviewed several different clients. Actually, what I'm wearing today, I hired one of my clients to style me because she was a stylist. And so I said, hey, I want you to style me for the trademark party, and I'm going to have a wardrobe change. And then what I did was I took the opportunity during this virtual experience. I began to educate my clients about the importance of trademarks. I educated my community about the importance of trademarks, the historical connotations, why trademarks are so important to your brand, how it can be leveraged as intellectual property. Then I've interviewed different clients and I talked to them, hey, what has been your experience like working with me? I even interviewed a client who didn't have the best experience with me. And I was like, let's talk about it. Let's talk about how I did not perform with the spirit of excellence in which I really wanted to perform. And how did that feel for you as a consumer? And she was like telling me like, girl, I was like, can you get it together? And I was like, you're right. And then I shared with them, as a result of that experience, what did I change in my business? Because we're still entrepreneurs. A lot of our clients are entrepreneurs, they're small business owners or they're big business owners, who knows? But we're still running businesses as law firm owners. And so being able to share the good, the bad, the ugly, really, 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 people really appreciated it because it's not all sunshine and rainbows. And so being able to have this wonderful virtual experience, which we're going to continue to do, it was something where I could showcase my expertise. I had these amazing slides of the hundreds of clients that we've trademarked successfully. And I said, when you see these people come across your screen, you tag them, you shout them out, you tell them congratulations. Because when I think about my community, again, probably 97% of my clients are African American. When I look at what has happened to my community with respect to their relationship to intellectual property, and these entrepreneurs are stepping up and they're saying, my ideas are valid, they are worth protecting, they should be celebrated for that. Because oftentimes in our community, pursuing entrepreneurship is not something that is encouraged. I feel like now the tides have changed, but it has not been encouraged, large in part due to the historical context, here I go again, of entrepreneurship in my community. Why? If we look at the stats, the number one group of people, like in terms of occupation, who were lynched in the Jim Crow South were Black entrepreneurs. They were some type of entrepreneur. They had their own way of earning their own income. And clearly that was a threat to the powers that be. And so they were taken out. And so that historical context and fear surrounding pursuing entrepreneurship in my community has no doubt trickled down from generation to generation to generation. And so there's safety in my community with working for someone else and not working for someone else. There's safety in not working for yourself, right? And so when I look at all these amazing men and women who said, I am going to pursue entrepreneurship, I'm going to pursue my God-breathed dreams, and then I'm going to protect myself and my legacy so that I can have something to pass down to my children. Heck yeah, we're going to celebrate y'all. Like, we're going to have a party in the middle of a pandemic, and we're going to show up and we're going to celebrate you. And people really appreciated that. And of course, I offered people the opportunity to hire me after that. And then I sold trademarks and I made a bunch of money. And I was able to change lives. So it was awesome. So when you think about, there's different ways to market your law firm. And I haven't even really got started. That's the crazy thing. I'm like, I'm going to do some crazy stuff for 2021. But just being able to say, I literally had the idea to do a trademark party July 3rd. And I was like, let's do it. And I did it like 3 weeks later, me and my husband. And people were like, did you have a video crew in your house? I'm like, no, it was just me and my boo. Like, we were just doing it. So, just being able to just say, you know what, I have an idea. It pops in my head, let's do that. So I don't want to take up too much more time. I know we're at the end of the presentation. I want to open the floor for questions, comments, feedback, etc. Oh, you said if I can do more? Oh yeah, I can do more stuff. So let me think of other things that I've done to market my firm. Or if you guys want me to kind of delve in further about some of the stuff, I'm happy to do just that. Because I want to make sure that I take up all the good time. Y'all are loving what I'm suggesting. Well, I'm happy that y'all are loving it. Because a lot of times what happens, guys, is as attorneys, we get so afraid. We are absolutely terrified to really start something or try to do something different because we're like, I don't know. I really think that a law school is the place where entrepreneurs are broken, not where they're made, because they put so much fear into us when it comes to that. I think you have to really do different things. Someone I really admire who does this is Kiana, the lawyer. She's killing it. She always does something innovative, always does something amazing, right? And so I love the way that she markets her firm, and it really pushes me to, really think outside the box. Nina says, how do you cite law when you see there's cultural relevant misinterpretation by the examiner? I think what I would do is a lot of times I rely on internet evidence, but then I also rely on some case law. So it just depends on what the refusal is. So, or however it is that they are basically, however the basis is of the particular refusal, I still go back to the heart of, hey, this is a trademark, it meets the elements or the prima facie elements of being a trademark. And also here's the reasons why from this particular perspective that this term is not descriptive, right? So it could be, maybe a double entendre argument. It could be, various arguments. It really just depends on what it is. Like last night I was doing attempting to overcome a refusal, and I was talking about, crowded field. And so, really looking at, okay, how many trademarks has the USPTO allowed to register? That contain the same word or the same element. If it's a crowded field, then this commonly shared term is weak and diluted, right? And so sometimes you can see that. Other things too is that you really have to be able to say, because most of the times I think what people don't understand is the term Black is not just descriptive of an entire group of people. It's also a cultural description, because Blackness is a culture. So I think that sometimes that's not translated well whenever I'm representing clients, because oftentimes they're like I have a client, Black Wallet, and I was like, she's not selling Black wallets. She's not doing that. And so it was a suggestive mark. And so the trademark office was like, well, no, because you guys are marketing to Black people, then you have to have a disclaimer of this term. And I really agree with that. That was one that, she still has a trademark, but I really didn't like that they weren't really accepting my suggestive argument. Anita says, more tips on client experience optimization. Oh man, I put GIFs into I put custom GIFs or just GIFs into my client emails. I would say that I use a lot of tech. One of the things that I do for my clients that I recently started doing is video reviews of the opinion letters, because most of the time what happens is, and I'm like, I have at one point in time, well, right now we probably have like 60, 70 pending trademarks that need to be filed, meaning that, or they're prepared to be filed, right? So when you have a large bulk, or at least to me and my firm and the firm size right now and my staff, that's a lot of trademarks. And so earlier, I think August, September, we had like 100, right? And we had never had that many. And so I'm like, oh my goodness, let's figure this out. So I had to hire people to be able to manage that and really build out the systems even stronger. And I said, let me start recording video overviews of these opinion letters for the client. Why? Because if a client doesn't understand the opinion letter, they're going to want to get on the phone with you, right? So I'm like, we don't have a lot of time to talk to people these days, not because we don't want to, but because we just literally are stretched too thin and I need to hire more people and I don't have enough time. So I began to record video walkthroughs and overviews of the opinion letter, made those videos password protected. And so what happens was I am virtually holding the client's hands when we're reviewing the opinion letter. And so the questions that the clients undoubtedly have, I'm able to cover them in the opinion letter, and it allows the process to flow much more smoothly. So that's a great tip in how to optimize your client experience and help you stand out. Because my clients are like, you're amazing. You're fantastic. I can't believe that you did this. Thank you so much for my custom video. Yes, let me give you more money and let me move to the next step of the trademark process. Yeah, Ellison says, so much to think about being a Black woman from Suriname, South America, where the Black community also is not inclined to be entrepreneurs. And I believe that, when we look at the history of our countries and how it was really founded on slave labor, the enslavement of people, you see that the culture encouraged servitude, whether that be servitude through slavery or servitude through employment, right? And so it's a big shift that people are making now. Charity says, how do you encourage clients to also seek culturally relevant representation, especially when they feel that they have to seek representation from big law firms or certain attorneys that have been ranked on the big list? I think it depends on who your clientele are, because I don't even run into that issue. I think it depends on who it is that you're targeting, right? And so if you, I think through my content, the content that you create is going to attract your ideal client to you. So you need to figure out who it is that you serve. I know exactly who I serve, and I'm actually pivoting to serve them greater. No, I'm not telling you, but I know exactly this type of woman that I'm supposed to serve. And it's my ideal client, and they pay me in full every single time. And they're paying me lots of money every single year, and I'm doing a great job for them. I can do my best work for those types of people. And I'm like, I need to target them. And so really what happens, I rarely, well, first of all, I don't even take the calls anymore. My team does. But when I was taking those calls, I rarely had people who would say things like, oh, I don't, I should probably go with someone else. Most of the time people pay to even get on the phone to speak to us, because a lot of times when people don't want to pay, they're just like tire kickers. They're just like, oh, I want to just speak to somebody for free. And I just want to compare you to, there's no comparison, right? So that's just how I look at it. The content that I create, the marketing that I create, the results that I provide, I'm incomparable. And so when I approach things that way, and the confidence that I have, and I know exactly what I'm talking about, and I know who it is that I'm serving, I really don't have people who even approach me that way. So I would look at what you're doing in terms of your marketing, and also, your confidence level when it comes to really delivering that, and what are you attracting? Are you attracting those types of people? And if so, what do you need to do to tweak? And stand firm. Like, we went to law school, we put a lot of time into what it is that we're doing, and we're really developing. You're coming to conferences such as this and developing your craft, for the benefit of all these other people, and you continue to invest in your education. That counts for something. Nina says, how do you take your marketing to the next level? I see reels becoming popular now. Is that a good direction to head in? Always be an early adopter on any platform. So yes, you definitely need to be doing reels, because reels are going to be seen, much longer. They're going to have a larger reach, because anytime a new platform rolls out something new, you need to be on top of it. So yes, do reels. Can you share the systems you use? As in, Glenessa, like what kind? Like, oh, I use Dubsado. Oh, I use, Slack. So I use Slack to communicate with the team. I use Trello to really do the project management. I use Dubsado to really, manage my client workflows. So I have my workflows literally built out. I have probably like 12 strong workflows. So it's like, boom, the client contacts the firm. The second workflow is, the client has an intake call with my team. It's their client onboarding process. Then I have a client, a trademark search and opinion letter workflow. I have a trademark draft workflow. I have workflows broken out into whether or not you file a 1A trademark or a 1B trademark. I have statement of use workflows, extension workflows, maintenance workflows. Then I have a registration workflow. So I have all these workflows broken out, and that's just for the trademarks.
On that note, okay, it's actually not at all on that note. but before you move on to the next thing, the CLE code for this session is LZ9DL. It is lion, zebra, the number 9, down, low. Okay. All right. Carry on, Ticora. Thank you.
Okay. Awesome. I need to write that down for myself. So yeah, Glenn has to ask, is that what you're talking about when we're speaking about systems? Let me just put myself on the camera. Okay. Let me see. So and then of course I use Alt Legal for trademark management. Hey guys. Trademark management. Because again, I have like now I have like I think our numbers are like 470 trademarks. So we have to, like, I have to have something else that's going to help really manage everything. Let's see. A video for each client, or a general video that you use for all clients. I do a video for every client. It's worth it, because then if I can answer their questions on a video, and it's not just me, it's my other team members that I'm training them on how to do that. But it's nice to have a video that they can watch, and it can answer their questions. And you don't have to do that for everything. I have certain videos, or I'm not gonna tell you that. Well, I'll tell you that. And I now I'm doing some audio, like kind of like secret podcast recordings for my clients. I have also like courses that I've created for my clients if they're struggling and they're like, oh man, my first name didn't work out. then I will say, here, take this course that I created that's going to teach you how to, there's all these different naming concepts that you can use to create a new trademark name. Why am I going to just be like, oh, just let me know when you figure out your new name? Give them something that can help them. So I share with them some naming concepts that can help them. And they're like, thank you so much. That really helped me generate a new name. Now I have a new trademark, right? Let's see. Oh, I use Loom to password protect the videos. So you can create the video in Loom, and there's a certain amount of hours that you can get for free. I've now exceeded that, so I have to pay for it, which is fine. You can password protect the videos that way. Let's see. Have you done anything to discuss the George Floyd trademark attempts by a third party? I think I may have a while ago, but it's been a while. How early did I get workflows in place? Like, probably like 6 months in. I should have done it from day one. And finally, what advice would you give to law students? You know what? That just try as many things as you want. I didn't take one trademark course in law school. I can never get my schedule aligned. So I learned everything that I know about trademarks and how to run a business post law school. So just try to diversify your experiences and figure out what it is that you want to do. And really try to, if you can, get some internships and to be able to see if this is the type of work that you want to do. So that would be my advisement there.
Real quick, before you move on, again, the CLE code, just in case you missed it, is LZ9DL. Okay. All right. Thanks. Keep going.
Okay. So yeah, I would love any other questions, comments, concerns, because I believe like what I do and I know what I do helps me stand out and it attracts a certain level of clientele, like just next level. And people say, so, now I really wasn't even marketing the firm that much in October just because I was like, I'm trying to, when your business increases by so much, you have to make sure, like, hold on, let me make sure that my foundation is right. Let me make sure that I have the right people. I'm hiring people, so I hired. How many people have I hired? Like 4 full-time employees, and now I have to hire like 3 more. Because we're growing so fast. And then I'm thinking, okay, well, what's the vision? Because what I do, I'm just like so much bigger than trademarks. It's trademarks are great, but what I'm preparing to do and build is so much bigger than that, right? I want to have a firm that is a juggernaut when it comes to IP law, and people can come and they can get patent representation, copyright, trademark, litigation, etc. Right. So now I'm pivoting to make sure that our flagship service is always going to be trademark, but there are other things that we can do. How many other attorneys do I work with? I have 1 full-time attorney that works for me. I have 2 paralegals. I have, so that would be it. Then I have a freelance paralegal that I work with as well. And I probably will hire another attorney next year. I believe in duplicating myself. I think that was one of the worst things that I didn't do. I was afraid to duplicate myself out of fear. And I lost my father. And while I was preparing and planning his funeral, I was responding to a trademark office action, which was successful. It was a failure to function trademark. It's very difficult to win those. So I think my daddy gave me some good luck. But I then realized what I had built was not good. It was a burden and not a blessing. And so I made that change, and my father passed away last May. And so this just took me, in terms of building the firm and what it is today, it just took me a year of changing my mindset and being very, very focused to being able to take a pivot in the right direction. So yeah, I really believe that you should duplicate yourself. If you can. That means having somebody else, because people hire for their weaknesses, but you need to hire for your strengths too. Bree says, how you learn about other cultures, for example, foreign filers. Google. I think Google is a wonderful place to start. If you're saying, gosh, I'd really like to support this community. I would just start with that. If there's someone else even asking, I would look into reading any articles. What are the ways in which they consume their media, right? Looking at all of those things, looking at the business landscape in that particular country, understanding the culture from that particular aspect, that would be definitely where I would start just to understand. Oh, thank you. So, and I think it's really important. I think that again, like I said, I can't stress it enough. Being able to duplicate, and I even look at my team now, where I'm like, there needs to be two of you. There needs to be two of you. We need to, uh, because I'm looking at my lead attorney, and I'm like, she's great, but I need her to be someone else in place, to be able to help. I think one of the best things that I've done is to be able to say, you know. One of the best things that I've done is to be able to I've really been looking at my business now, and I'm like, what is everybody's primary role? Like having a business and being able to say, okay, here is what it is you're supposed to do. Talisha says, where can I purchase the Ticora workflow kit? I told you have to set up an executive legal meeting with me. So Alicia's been like, when are you going to do coaching? I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. So you can do it that way. Yeah. Because I really think a lot of times what happens is we are so busy trying to just get the business off the ground that we don't have, or get the firm off the ground, that we don't really have strong systems. And then what happens is you're building and there's a breakdown in the building process. And if you have really strong systems, that's honestly that's like in order for me to be able to deliver the level of legal protection and legal services that we are able to deliver, it all goes back to how strong my systems are. And that was even more apparent to me when my business increased by 84.6% in July. And it keeps going up. And I'm not complaining. But once the business when you have like a rush of clients that come in, and that really stem from that trademark turn up, the virtual experience, when you have a rush of clientele that comes in to hire you, then you start realizing like how strong is the foundation that I built. How strong is it? And then I was like, it's strong, but like at 20%. I was like, there's so much wrong. But I'm very thankful that every single day I'm like, okay, this is something that I need to tweak. This is something that I need to fix, because I know larger clients are going to come to me. It's just destiny. It's happening already. Next level entrepreneurs, the top people, top performers. And I'm like, if they're coming to me, then I have to make sure that they're going to not only have a beautiful experience when they interact with me, online, but also that the back end experience matches that. Any other questions? Always fun. One thing I love about Ticora is how real you are, how you ask questions and also give answers freely. Yeah, it's abundance, right? Because there's so much, there's more than enough to go around. I think, oh gosh, Rosazina, she told me like, I forget how many trademarks she said is filed every year. Bree, you guys probably know, but she was like, there's like millions or hundreds of thousands. And she was like, all I need is like X amount. And I was like, you're right. Like, that's all I need. Like, if there's like hundreds of thousands of trademarks filed every year, and all you need to meet your income goals is like 50, then hey, you can do that, you know, totally do that. Oh, you did. You implemented some of my methods a few months back, and your income doubled very quickly. Yeah, I knew that was going to happen. You're supposed to be making way more money. You're a really good attorney, and it makes sense. How do you set up a coaching session? Oh Lordy, I guess I'm ready for this now. You have to go to my Instagram page, and then you can log in. Not log in, but there's a link, and you can set up a session. And I feel like I think that's oh yeah, you can win it in a prize in our raffle. I am doing a session there, so I don't even know how to do the raffle thing, but yeah, I'm definitely doing that. So whatever kind of raffle we're doing, I did say I was gonna do that. That'll be fun. Yeah, just fill out the form. Yeah. So, any other questions about culturally relevant representation, marketing your firm, anything like that? I think now is a really good time to really put your foot on the gas too. I think a lot of people think, oh, people aren't going to be spending money. They're about to spend a lot of money. you know, they're about to. Trademarks are tax deductible, right? This is a piece of property that we can assist the clients with, and so people are looking at ways to reduce their taxable income. And so being able to get a trademark, it's something that people should have as they go into 2021. Eloise, you can see me giving masterminds for lawyers if I don't already. I would love to, um, because I really want people to win and I really want people to do well. And it's really needed. Like, and a lot of us don't feel like we have like that support or that community. I had a mentorship over the summer and that was a lot of fun. Sonia says, everyone always wants more clients, but are they prepared for the faucet to be turned on via systems, workflows, processes? Exactly. Yeah. But and that's what I realized. I said, wow, it is a lot, but I'm very thankful. You have to have a really strong team. I can't believe what happened. Like after I hired my full-time attorney, how everything just, it's like everything shot up. Just taking that step of faith, taking that step of faith was just amazing. And I want to be able to employ more women and more people, more men and women. I was discriminated against after I had my son. I was fired from the law firm I was working at, and the gentleman, and I use that term loosely, told me, I no longer think you're a good fit for the success of my firm, and you should stay home and get over your pregnancy brain. And and I was holding my son in my arms. He was 10 days old at the time, and to look down at him and have somebody almost make it seem like he's like the worst thing, that I wouldn't be successful because I had a child. I think even though that was terrible, it was such a great gift. People give us the gift of doubt, and he doubted me. And I think that was just the additional fuel that I needed to be able to pursue, my calling as an entrepreneur. Brianna says, I'm a younger attorney and I come from a past of streetwear, fashion, music industry intersections. What are the staple keys to keep it fun, edgy, but also professional? Listen, you can do whatever you want to do, Brianna. I've been wearing faux locks. I have fire red hair right now. You get to be who you are, right? So, and you get to define what is professional. And so I think a lot of times, especially women and Black women, we are highly policed and we have a lot of freedom when it comes to entrepreneurship. And so I think you leverage your past experience. And because when you're leveraging your gifts and your authenticity, people are going to be able to say, wow, I can connect with her, right? So a lot of people will say, wow, I really connect with your story of being discriminated against, right? Or people tell me, like, I'm a mother of two small children too. I have a 2 and a 4-year-old. Or others will say, wow, I was afraid of this or that. And, you know, or some people I've spoken with people who have a science background, right? And they're like, oh, that's so cool. You have a biology degree. you know, I would say leverage it all and then determine how do you want to be seen and what do you want to be known for the industry, right? And then if you're able to do that, I was speaking with a lot of my mentors about this, and I'm like, you guys could be known in I told one young lady, and I'm like, that was such a good idea. And I haven't seen her do anything with it. And I told her, I said, you could be known for this and this particular food in this particular industry. And it was food and beverage. And I told her what her name should be. I told her what she should name her law firm. And she was like, I don't know. I was like, that was the best idea I ever had. But, I have all sorts of ideas when it comes to marketing. and I'm like, whatever. So, I mean, but, that doesn't mean that, it was a bad thing. She just didn't want to take the idea. I thought it was fantastic. So I think, staple keys to keep things fun, edgy, but also professional. Like I love hip hop and R&B. I love rap, so a lot of times what I say is my clients are the perfect verse over a tight beat, so that's a reference to Brown Sugar. It's a great, great movie, right? And so my ideal clients that speaks to them, right? It's fun, it's edgy, but yet it's professional because my clients are the perfect verse over a tight beat. Brittany says, "How can I apply to be a mentee?" Just send me a message. I'll probably do the mentorship again in some way, shape, or form because it'll be a lot of fun to be able to do it. So I always had a good time. Let's see. So I think other things too. Like y'all made a rap video like to Cardi B's money moves, and it was called Legal Moves. So I mean, I feel like you can do whatever you want. Don't allow any societal norms and things like that to keep you in the box. And we battle that a lot as attorneys, and we really the sky's the limit. That's really what the sky's the limit. We can accomplish whatever it is that we want, whatever we desire, whatever we put our hearts to. But really, what I found that I needed to do was to stop letting what other people say or think about me matter. And this is the last thing. This is the last thing, Bree.
We want to hear it.
Okay.
We are all on the edges of our seats.
This is one of the best things that I've done recently because I was struggling with comparison like over the past couple months, just to be transparent. I was like, oh, this attorney's doing that and they're doing this. And, it's human, right? We'll compare our businesses with other people. And I realized I was comparing myself because I wasn't really honoring the gifts that I have. And so I listened to this video by Eric Thomas, who's the hip hop preacher. And he said, you have to command your gifts. And so he gave some instructions that I want to share with you all today. He said that the first thing that you need to do is you need to identify your gifts. So every single gift you have, you need to write it down. And so here are some examples of some of my gifts, because I know some of us will overthink this and it's not that serious. It's not that deep. Okay. So I have a gift of writing. I have a gift of speaking. I have a gift of encouraging, like motivating people, grace. I have a gift of gift for the law and legal representation. I have a gift of humor and storytelling. I do have a very strong gift when it comes to creating like systems and workflows in my own business. And I have a gift of connection. I'm able to bring people together, and a lot of people don't know why, but they're drawn to me. They feel safe with me. They know that their secrets can be trusted with me, right? So I have all these gifts. So once you identify your gifts, the next thing you need to do is you need to give your gifts an address. Again, this is ET, the hip hop preacher, is not my stuff. But so I said, okay, my gift of writing is going to go into churches, into the hearts of women. It's going to go to underdogs. It's going to go into corporate America. It's going to go into legal conferences. I said, my gift of speaking is going to do the same thing. It's going to go into business conferences, legal conferences, media. I said, my legal gift will go into certain places. My gift of humor and storytelling will take me certain places, right? Then after you give your gift an address, you need to give it an assignment. What is it going to do when it gets to the address, right? So my gift of writing is going to move people out of pits into their palaces. My gift of writing is going to crush procrastination. It's going to activate purpose in people. My gift of law is going to take care of my children and my grandchildren, right? My gift of humor and storytelling is going to allow me to be easily understood, right? So I began to say, here's the address, here's the assignment. So when you get there, this is what you're going to do. And then this is the part that I'm changing a little bit. I said, I'm going to make this gift an asset. Why? Because we are all about protecting assets. So not only how much is this gift, how much money is the gift going to make me? Is there any intellectual property that I need to have or develop around this gift, right? And so once you have identified your gifts, you've given it an address, you've given it an assignment, and you've made it an asset, it allows me to really go back and look at this list and say, this is who you are, Ticora. These are all your gifts. There's no need to compare yourself to anybody. And how often are you using all of these gifts? Because a lot of times what happens when you compare yourself to other people and what it is that they've done, you're really dishonoring your gifts and you're not even using the gifts that you already have. And so if you really focus on what it is that you have and what you bring to the market and what you bring to the table, that can kind of pour out into your business, because oftentimes our businesses are a reflection of who we are. And so if you have this gift, this list of giftings and what these gifts are supposed to do, it's going to anchor you into your true purpose and what it is that you're supposed to do in this world.
That was absolutely beautiful. Thank you so very much, Ticora. I think the chat was explosive the entire time, and everybody was just singing your praises. We all really appreciated that, and we learned a ton from you. So thank you so much. Up next, in about 6 minutes, we have our coffee masterclass starting at 3 o'clock Eastern. If you're not joining us for that, do join us for Jack Newton's Creating a Client-Centered Firm, which will begin at 4 o'clock p.m., followed by Nehal's closing keynote, and then our virtual happy hour, at which you can win the session that Ticora has graciously provided to us, the one-on-one firm consultation. You absolutely will want that prize. If you have not yet, if you've not yet filled out the form, make sure you do so. We'll put the link in the chat. But please do join us for the coffee masterclass. And if you need some coffee, now's the time. All right, we will see you soon. Thank you so very much, Ticora.
Thank you for having me. Bye.
Bye.